For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlu and since the Sandbox.
What's going on, since the Sandbox fans? We are back.
Yo, yo.
And you're hearing my voice, so we always know what that means. We're talking a little NBA, and me and Steve, we're going to do a little back and forth and, talk about, a few guys who we think are underrated in the NBA right now. So, Steve, since you were kind enough to let me do an intro this time, I'm going to let you start off, and who's your first underrated guy?
All right, well, first off, let's cut all the kind shit out because we ain't going to be kind. But I actually think you're going to agree with my first one. I think one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA has got to be Chris Middleton.
Yeah,
I mean, I honestly think that Chris Middleton goes under the radar so much because Giannis gets talked about as an MVP continuously.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think Chris Middleton, night in and night out, I don't want to say has more of an impact because he definitely doesn't have more of an impact, but he affects that game like a lot when teams are focusing on Giannis, and his streakiness in that offense continuously brings, sustainable, 10-2 runs just because, the way he impacts the game. So I think Chris Middleton is a very underrated superstar. I'd like to see him in an all-star game soon, maybe even in that three-point contest, the way he could shoot the ball. Chris Middleton, I think, is very underrated.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that out of you, Steve, honestly. He's a consistent 40, 60, 90 guy, I mean, year in and year out, so definitely has the consistency, and I think you're right. I think teams kind of focus on Giannis a lot, and that does give Middleton a lot of wide open shots, and it allows him to play the way he wants to play because it's a lot easier to play when, the best defender on the other team is covering
Giannis.
Yeah, because realistically, he plays small forward, so it's not like the best wing defender is going to be on Giannis, you know what I mean? So he's going to see team's second, third best defenders, which is perfect for him because, his level of offense is better than any, two or third best defenders on a team's defense. You know what I mean? It just outpowers it. So.
And Kev, I feel like his inside game is so smooth.
Yeah,
too,
it is. He's good all over the floor. He's 40, 60, 90. So he definitely, he's consistent. Can hit from three, can hit from mid-range. I mean, he can even drive and finish at the hoop a little bit. And if he gets fouled, he's a 90% plus free throw shooter. So he can just attack you all different ways. But that actually leads me in to one of my underrated players because it's a teammates of his, Drew Holiday.
Okay.
And again, I'm a big Drew Holiday guy. He's definitely had some injury issues in the past, but when he's healthy, I mean, he really does bring a lot to a team. I mean, if you think about it, he's probably the best defending point guard in the league besides maybe Ben Simmons. You know what I mean? Or best defending guard.
If you even consider Simmons a point guard.
Right, yeah, exactly. And he's the best defending under 6'7" point guard in the league. And as far as offense, he's one of those guys who can facilitate, and when he has to, he can drop 20, 25, even 30 points a game. You know what I mean? And I feel like every team he's been on, he's had a positive impact. And he's not someone who, if he comes in and he's the number 2 of your team, is going to bring you to a championship. But if he can play his role, defend, facilitate, and put up, 15, 20 a night like he's doing with Milwaukee, his impact is so much. You know what I mean? He brings so much to that team, and they had a guy a lot like him in Eric Bledsoe the past few years, but he's just more consistent, and he's got more of that pit bull in him, and he's, just more consistent on offense. Eric Bledsoe, towards the end of his time in Milwaukee, kind of became an offensive liability. So Drew Holiday, very underrated.
So two players from the Bucks. Do we think that we talk about Giannis with too high of regard, giving those guys such props?
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would just say I think we kind of underestimate what their potential can be in the playoffs. Because I feel like again, everyone's if you stop Giannis, you can beat them. It's that might not be true. You know what I mean?
Imagine I still wish they had obviously Connaughton and DiVincenzo can be streaky, but I wish they had more consistent options.
The thing about the Bucks too is their star power. You know what I mean? Middleton and Drew Holiday, they're good. Obviously, Middleton made the All-Star game last year. Did he make it? He might have made it this year too. Sure. I don't know. But they just don't have star power. People don't look at Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday the same as they look
as
at
like a 2 and 3 option,
right, like a Harden and Kyrie, or like a Dame Lillard and
or Drummond and LeBron.
Exactly, like they're lacking star power, which I think takes away from their reputation. But that's all the glory in them being so good. You know what I mean?
No, fair enough. I want to talk about the next guy because this guy has been around for such a long time, and he really is one of the most impactful, underrated stars, Kev, of our generation, and that's Chris Paul. I mean, he really is. He's significantly underrated, and he honestly is going to go down as a top point guard of all time. He really is. I mean, what he's doing with the Phoenix Suns and what he did last season with OKC, I mean, I can't tell you or name another point guard off the top that can come in and have nearly close to like that impact. And there's a lot that can scoring the ball wise, but he's not only changed them as a team, but he's made all of those players individually and team-wise better. And like I can't tell you someone that has made that much of an impact. And we've seen Chris Paul grow so much over the years, but I still think that we're seeing ways that he's trying to have his game evolve season after season.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. And I think, obviously, the biggest knock everyone, puts on Chris Paul's career is, I didn't win the ring. Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like you said, like, there comes a point where we have to just look at things just other than rings. Because like you said, you have to think about the impact that he's literally had on every team he's been on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he got drafted by the New Orleans Hornets, throwback for all my young followers and watchers out there, throwback New Orleans, Charlotte Pelicans, Charlotte Hornets, so throwback to them. But no, he got drafted by the Hornets, boom, like they started rebuilding their entire franchise, you know what I mean? And they were good for a while, but they didn't have a great roster, like, you know what I mean? He was playing MVP caliber ball there his entire time there, and then obviously he went to the Clippers, made them an instant contender, and they never really got over that hump. But people don't realize, like,
he was nasty then, though.
Right, and they didn't have the best coaching, and them losing wasn't all on him either. Like, he ran into teams like the Golden State Warriors, you know what I mean, and just the Houston Rockets, like, before he even got there, you know what I mean? So it's not like he always had the easiest path. And the other thing people don't realize too is, Steve, you got the Kobe jersey hanging up.
Yeah.
There was a point in time when one man named David Stern
didn't let that happen.
Literally
a man's
stopped
dog.
him from Kobe teaming up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who knows what that could have did for Chris Paul's career? That could have completely changed the narrative of his career, his already Hall of Fame career. You know what I mean? So definitely love that one. I mean, again, just you can't knock the guy. I mean, he's been in a league where he's had to go through the Kobes, the LeBrons, the Kevin Durant's, the Steph Curry's. Like, he's
as an undersized point guard compared to like the Ben Simmons
on a team where, I mean, unless you want to argue the Clippers for like a year or two, like all the teams he had to go up against, like he never had the best roster on the floor, you know what I mean?
What about the Rockets when he was in the Rockets?
Again, they were always like, they never had the best roster. Like, again, there was always the Golden State Warriors, you know what I mean? Like, they never really got over
Chris Paul was on the roster with Harden and Dwight, though. I feel like that was like a top team.
Yeah, but again, they underachieved as a team, and it wasn't all on Chris Paul. Like, a lot of it was on James Harden. Like, you know what I mean? As much as I hate to say it. So, again, can't really knock Chris Paul for that, but great one. For my second guy, a guy who, I don't know, maybe he's not underrated, but I feel like he's still a little underrated when we talk about best big men in the league, and it's a guy who was all over the trade market headlines this Saturday, and that's Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah.
I think he's extremely underrated.
I think so too.
When we talk about the best big guys in the league, we always mention the ADs, obviously, the Joel Embiids, the Jokic's, the Drummond, but like this guy, and I'm not saying he's better than any of them, but he's right up there with them. I mean, especially
talent-wise.
Yeah, especially talent and consistency. Like, I know he was on the Orlando Magic, but like he was still putting up like 27, like 8 and 8 a game. Like, you know what I mean? Like crazy numbers. And I think with Chicago, it's going to be even better because now he has like a solidified number one in Zach LaVine. You know what I mean? And not that Aaron Gordon wasn't, but I feel like they were kind of like counterparts. You know what I mean? Like they were both like half who made a number one. You know what I mean? So now he has a guy who he can rely on to take the load off, and he can just play his game. And I think this is going to be so good for his career, and I think it's great for the Chicago Bulls. But I mean, Nikola Vucevic, again, very underrated. If he came to the Celtics, I would have been ecstatic. Like, that would have been one of the best moves that we've made in the past, like, 5-6 years. Yeah, so love Vucevic. Excuse my pronunciation.
Oh, that's too funny. But I'll just talk about my last one very quickly. And Kev, SGA, I really feel like he's a superstar in this league, and it just doesn't get noticed because OKC's not a big market and they're not relevant. You know what I mean? And there's nobody else there that's like, oh, so and so had like a great player. Like you know what I mean? It's literally just him, and he's kind of like an under the radar dude. Like he just does his thing, and like that's it. Like he's not someone you'll see in like the headlines, anything like that. And I really feel like with all those draft picks that OKC has, they'll probably be involved in the trade market just as involved as they are in moving around in the draft. So I really feel like it's just a matter of time for a team like OKC to really get another star or two and talk about a team that can at least scratch it at the 8-7 seed in the West. You know,
and he's so young, SGA. He's so young,
yeah,
and so good. And it's crazy too because like he was like a decently big name coming out of college, but like for his class, like he's literally like already, I feel like, just exceeded all expectations of what he's going to be. And he's still so young. Like, he's not even in his prime yet, and people are already like, who's like, you know what I mean? What happened to this kid? So love that out of UC. Bunch of good names from you.
Wow, okay, huh?
It's Lent, guys. I had to give up something, so I gave up picking on Steve. Number three, a guy, again, who I'm very high on. You guys know the Sixers are my favorite to come out of the East. And their number 3 option, Tobias Harris. I think he's hands down top 3 most underrated players in the league. And I think people don't realize, like, with the exception of the Brooklyn Nets, and maybe if you want to argue the Lakers, like, he's probably the best third option in the entire league. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a walking bucket, he's a walking rebound, and he's a slightly above average defender. So the fact that this guy doesn't get talked about as much as like a lot of the 3 options around the league do is crazy to me because, like I said, they're my favorite to come out of the East, and like he's a lot of the reason. Like, he's kind of having the impact that I think they were hoping Jimmy Butler was going to have. Like a third option. Not saying that he's better than Jimmy Butler, just the way it worked out. I think Tobias Harris is bringing that impact that they thought Butler was going to bring, and a guy who's going to give you at least 18 a night with a plus side of like 25 to 30 a night. You know
but like, here's my thing though. Like, Tobias Harris has been there for like a couple of years now. Like, where was this like a couple of years ago? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's my thing. Like, it's been there. Like, that's my thing. And I feel like he just like, he's one of those guys, again, like you talked about with, I forget who you said it about, but he's just an under the radar guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that, if you look at his numbers, like, he's putting up like probably like 18, like 7 and 5 a game. You know what I mean? But no one talks about it because it's Embiid and Simmons. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even before he got traded, when he was on Detroit, I said, like, when he was his first couple of years in Detroit, I was like, this guy's going to be good. You know what I mean? And if he's
not solid, but that's my least favorite one on your list.
Out of the 32 teams, I feel like, 24 teams, like, he'd be a number 1 or 2 option on those teams. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's just really good, solid, consistent.
Definitely my least favorite on your list, but it's all good. All right, guys, those are our most underrated players in the NBA. I want to know what you guys think. Tell me if this kid's list is trash, because I definitely think majority of the time that it is. Make sure to check out our podcast, guys.
For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlu and Steven's a Sandbox.